Britain does churches rather well. Norman towers rising above village greens, candlelit evensongs and the steady rhythm of Sunday bells. Centuries of christenings and burials recorded in parish ledgers. Postcard stuff. But some churches never made it onto postcards. Scattered across these islands are places of worship where the vicar locks up well before dusk. Parishes where even the most devoted congregation members refuse to attend evening services. Churches where something has taken up residence that does not respond to prayer. These are not merely old buildings with creaky floorboards and drafty windows. These are locations where documented phenomena have defied rational explanation for generations. Where parish records contain entries that church officials prefer not to discuss. Where the line between folklore and lived experience has become impossible to trace. Every village in Britain has its stories. Old women who remember what their grandmothers told them. Farmers who avoid certain fields after dark. Children warned away from particular ruins without being told why. But churches hold a special place in this landscape of unease. They were built as sanctuaries, places where the faithful could seek protection from evil. When that protection fails, when something dark takes root in consecrated ground, the violation feels deeper. The wrongness feels more profound. I have gone through parish records, archaeological reports, and local testimonies to bring you 10 churches where the faithful have learned to fear the dark. Now, before we dive in, if you find this helpful, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. Let us begin with a church that offers perhaps the gentlest haunting on this list. St Barnabas Church on the Isle of Wight. This late 19th century tin tabernacle now forms part of a farm shop, a simple corrugated iron structure that you might drive past without a second glance. The paint has faded to a muted grey. Wildflowers grow around the foundation stones. Nothing about its appearance suggests anything unusual. In 1980, two builders were repairing the corrugated iron roof when they encountered an elderly woman dressed in old-fashioned clothes. She was polite, almost grandmotherly. She offered them tea from a thermos flask and asked them kindly to return it to her address when they were finished. The men accepted. The tea was cold and undrinkable, but they thought nothing of it. When the builders finished their work and went to return the flask, they found the building at the address had been demolished. They made inquiries. The woman they described had been a church warden at St Barnabas. She had died in 1977. 3 years before, she handed them that thermos. What unsettles people about this story is its mundane kindness. No screaming spectre, no malevolent presence. Just an elderly woman offering workmen a cup of tea, apparently unaware that she had been dead for 3 years. The thermos itself was never explained. Where did it come from? Where did it go? The builders could not say. They described holding it in their hands. They remembered its weight. They recalled the disappointment of finding the tea undrinkable, a physical object from somewhere beyond explanation. Travelling northwest to Kent, we find a village that disputes any claim to the title of most haunted. Pluckley sits roughly 15 miles from Ashford in the Weald of Kent. Drive through on a summer afternoon, and you will see nothing but orchards and farmland. Red brick cottages line the main street. The village pub serves lunch to tourists who come seeking ghosts and usually leave disappointed. The 1989 edition of the Guinness Book of Records officially named Pluckley the most haunted village in Britain, documenting 12 resident ghosts within the parish boundaries. St Nicholas Church accounts for 2 of them. The Red Lady is said to wander the churchyard at night. According to parish records, she was buried here in the 12th century in a coffin made of lead with a single red rose placed in her hands. Some say she searches for the rose. Others say she searches for the child she lost. The White Lady has been seen moving through the church itself, passing through walls where doors once stood. Witnesses describe her as translucent, not quite solid, but not quite transparent either. She moves with purpose, as if she has somewhere to be, as if she does not realize the doors she remembers no longer exist. Locals report seeing lights coming from the church windows late at night, when no services are scheduled and no one should be inside. The verger, who has worked there for over 20 years, does not claim to have seen anything himself, but he admits he no longer closes up alone after dark. When asked why, he simply changes the subject. In North Yorkshire, we encounter something rather different. Physical evidence that has been examined, debated, and never explained. The Church of Christ the Consoler stands on the grounds of Newby Hall, a stately home near Ripon. The church was built as a memorial by Lady Mary Viner after her son was murdered by Greek bandits in 1870. Every detail was designed to console grief. The stained glass windows cast coloured light across the marble floors. The acoustics carry even whispered prayers to the vaulted ceiling. In 1963, the Reverend Kenneth F. Lord was photographing the interior of the church. He was alone. When the photograph was developed, he was not alone anymore. Standing beside the altar is a figure that should not exist. It appears to be wearing a white shroud over its face, possibly resembling a 16th century monk. Some researchers have suggested the face covering might indicate leprosy, a condition that would have required concealment in medieval times. What makes this photograph remarkable is its scale. Analysis suggests the figure would measure 8 or 9 feet tall, too large for any human to have stood there. Photographic experts examined the image extensively. They found no evidence of deliberate tampering. Other investigators cite hallmarks of accidental double exposure. But here is what strikes researchers most. Newby Church was built in 1870. It has no history of supernatural activity whatsoever. No ghost sightings before this photograph. No unusual activity since. The only anomaly is the photograph itself. It remains unexplained to this day. The photograph has been reproduced in countless books and documentaries. Experts continue to debate its authenticity, but no one has ever produced a satisfactory explanation for what Reverend Lord captured on film that day. The figure simply should not be there, and yet it is. Deeper into Oxfordshire lies Rycote Chapel, dedicated to St Michael, dating to the 15th century. The grounds hold a yew tree with an extraordinary claim attached to it. Legend says this tree was planted at the coronation of King Stephen in 1135, grown from a seedling brought from the Garden of Gethsemane itself. Whether that story is true, something has gathered at Rycote across the centuries. Visitors and researchers have documented multiple apparitions from entirely different time periods. A woman in Tudor dress has been seen inside the chapel. A grey lady walks the grounds near the ancient yew. A monk in brown robes has been observed moving through the graveyard. A milkmaid wearing 17th century clothing appears near the boundary walls. What unsettles investigators is the accumulation. One ghost might be dismissed. 4 ghosts from 4 different centuries suggest something about the location itself, as if Rycote collects the dead and holds them there. The chapel sits in isolated countryside now. No village surrounds it. The community it once served has vanished. Only the dead remain. The yew tree still stands. Its branches have grown twisted and ancient. Local legend warns against sleeping beneath it. Those who do report dreams of impossible vividness, dreams of faces they do not recognize, dreams of conversations in languages they do not speak. These dreams often feel more like memories than imagination. In Dorset, we find a collision of beliefs that spans 4,000 years. Nolton Church is a Norman structure built in the 12th century. That alone would make it unremarkable. What makes Nolton unique is where it stands. The church was deliberately constructed at the exact center of a Neolithic ritual henge earthwork, a pagan sacred site dating back thousands of years before Christianity arrived in Britain. The message was clear. The new faith would literally stand upon the old. English Heritage now maintains these ruins. The church fell into disuse centuries ago, its roof open to the sky, but the stories never stopped. The Shell Guide to Dorset recorded a peculiar theory about the henge earthwork. The ditch is positioned inside the rampart rather than outside. Defensive ditches are dug outside walls to keep threats away, but this ditch faces inward, as if designed to prevent the egress of spirits confined within. Modern archaeologists have recently revived the academic discussion of henges as ghost traps. In the late 15th century, the Black Death reached this valley. The population was decimated. Surviving inhabitants abandoned their village entirely. Houses fell into decay. Only the church remained, standing empty in its pagan circle. The trees grew wild around it. The fields returned to meadow. Nature reclaimed everything except the stones. Visitors today report seeing a rider on horseback who charges through the grounds at speed before vanishing the moment he reaches the church walls, as if whatever is trapped inside cannot permit entry. Others report feeling watched from the tree line, a presence observing from the shadows between the oaks, something patient, something that has been waiting for a very long time. On the Yorkshire coast, the town of Whitby needs little introduction. The harbour, the abbey ruins, the narrow streets climbing the hillside. Bram Stoker visited in 1890 and found here the ingredients for Dracula. St Mary the Virgin Church stands at the top of 199 stone steps. The graveyard wraps around the church, its headstones weathered by centuries of North Sea wind. This is where Stoker set key scenes in his novel. Fiction and reality became intertwined, but the stories here predate Stoker by centuries. Local fishermen speak of the Bargist coach, a phantom carriage pulled by headless horses carrying the skeletal remains of sailors. It arrives at the churchyard on the third night after a burial to pay respects to deceased seamen. Widows of lost sailors have reported hearing hooves on stone when no carriage is present. They hear the creak of wooden wheels. They hear voices calling names of the drowned. When they look out their windows, the street is empty. Erosion and landslips have led to several graves literally sliding off the cliffs. Bones have been found at the base. Some headstones are engraved with the words "in remembrance of" rather than "here lies," because the bodies were never recovered. These sailors and fishermen were lost at sea, buried in name only. In 1861, a terrible storm struck Whitby. John Storr was coxswain of the lifeboat. The crew launched 6 times that night to rescue sailors from vessels in distress. On the final attempt, all but one of the crew perished. Their graves stand in this churchyard, if you can find them before they too slip into the sea. The cliff erosion continues year by year. Inch by inch, the graveyard crumbles into the North Sea. The dead are being claimed twice. First by whatever took their lives, then by the sea that refuses to let Whitby keep them. Suffolk brings us to Holy Trinity Church in Blythburgh, known locally as the Cathedral of the Marshes. This 15th century church dominates the village, its tower visible for miles across the flat fenland. The marshes stretch out in every direction. Reed beds whisper in the wind. Waterfowl call across the wetlands at dusk. On the 4th of August 1577, a violent storm struck during morning service. The church was full. What happened next was recorded in parish documents and has never been satisfactorily explained. According to contemporary accounts, a massive black dog burst through the church doors amid a clap of thunder. The creature ran up the nave past the terrified congregation. A man died. A boy died. The church steeple collapsed through the roof. On its way out, the creature is said to have left claw marks on the north door. 4 parallel scorches burned into the wood. They remain visible today. Locals call them the devil's fingerprints. The rational explanation suggests lightning struck the church, causing the steeple collapse and the deaths. The marks on the door may be protective witch marks, intentionally burned to ward against future evil. But the eyewitness accounts from 1577 describe something else entirely. They describe Black Shuck, the legendary hellhound of East Anglia, visiting his wrath upon a house of God. Visitors to Blythburgh today can still see and touch those marks on the door. Draw your own conclusions. The same storm reportedly brought black shuck to another church 12 miles away on the same morning. 2 attacks, 2 churches, 1 creature. The accounts were recorded independently by different parishes with no communication between them. The details align with disturbing precision. We must now speak of a church where the darkness takes human form, where the horror is not supernatural but deliberate. The abandoned church of St Mary the Virgin stands at the edge of Clophill village in Bedfordshire. Built around 1350, the church fell into disuse from 1848. The building has been crumbling for over 170 years. What draws attention is not its ruin, but what happened within it. The church is said to face the wrong direction. Churches typically face east toward the rising sun, toward Jerusalem, toward God. St Mary the Virgin faces away. Since it turns its back on God, local legend claims it opened its doors to something else. In the 1960s, evidence of satanic rituals was discovered inside. Church walls were found covered in graffiti. Graves in the churchyard had been disturbed and rummaged. On the 16th of March 1963, 2 children were found playing in the ruins. They had discovered a human skull stuck on a piece of window frame jammed into the wall. Other bones were scattered across the floor in a deliberate pattern. The skull belonged to Jenny Humberstone, wife of an apothecary, dead for over a century before someone dug her up and arranged her remains for ritual purposes. Investigation revealed that many graves belonging to women had been specifically targeted and opened. The perpetrators were never identified. The motive was never established. The graves remain disturbed to this day. A hooded monk has been sighted at the abandoned site. Another presence, identified in local testimony as Sophie, is believed to haunt the church. A coffin belonging to Sophia Mendham was discovered inside the nave. She died in 1893. In 2004, police found evidence that animal sacrifices had recently taken place. New satanic graffiti covered the walls. Whatever drew practitioners here in the 1960s apparently continues to draw them still. Local residents report seeing lights moving through the ruins on certain nights. Flickering illumination is visible through the empty window frames. When police investigate, they find nothing. No candles, no flashlights, no evidence anyone has been there at all. The lights return regardless. Edinburgh brings us to Greyfriars Kirkyard, where the dead have learned to fight back. The kirkyard surrounds Greyfriars Kirk, a church dating to 1620. Behind high walls and locked gates lies a section called the Covenanters' Prison. Within that prison stands a structure called the Black Mausoleum. It belongs to George Mackenzie. In life, George Mackenzie served as Lord Advocate for Scotland during the reign of Charles II. His job was persecuting Presbyterian Covenanters during what history remembers as the Killing Times. 18,000 Covenanters lost their lives under his jurisdiction. After the Battle of Bothwell Brig in 1679, 1,200 Presbyterian prisoners were incarcerated in the Covenanters' prison. The enclosure was open to the sky but heavily fortified. Historians regard it as one of the first concentration camps. Most prisoners died from maltreatment or execution. Their mass graves lie feet away from the tomb of the man who killed them. From the first recorded incident in 1999, there have been hundreds of documented attacks on visitors. Scratches appearing on skin, cuts, bruises, burns, bite marks discovered under clothing where no one could have touched. Tour guides have photographed these injuries. Medical professionals have examined victims. No conventional explanation has been offered. The area has been exorcised twice, both times unsuccessfully. Poltergeist activity has been reported in houses surrounding the graveyard. Major fires have plagued the area. Eventually, both the author investigating these phenomena and his tour company offices overlooking the kirkyard burned to the ground. Years of records were destroyed. None of the surrounding properties was damaged. An official cause for the fire was never established. In 2000, a spiritualist medium named Colin Grant attempted to lay the spirits to rest. He died of a heart attack weeks later. Edinburgh City Council eventually sealed the Black Mausoleum and locked this section of the kirkyard from public access. The only way to approach is now through organised tours with signed liability waivers. Over 500 visitors have formally reported being physically assaulted by something invisible within these grounds. The attacks show no pattern. Men and women, young and old, believers and skeptics. Whatever dwells in the Black Mausoleum does not discriminate. It simply strikes. And then it waits for the next visitor to arrive. We arrive finally at St Mary the Virgin in Bottesford, Leicestershire. The village sits a few miles from the ruins of Belvoir Castle. The church itself is peaceful. Ancient yew trees shade the graveyard. The interior holds monuments to local nobility stretching back centuries. Afternoon light filters through medieval glass. The silence feels sacred rather than threatening. One tomb stands apart. It belongs to Francis Manners, 6th Earl of Rutland, who died in 1632. His 2 young sons are commemorated alongside him. The inscription carved into the stone reads that both children died in their infancy by wicked practices and sorcery. This is the only tomb in England that officially declares witchcraft as a cause of death. In the early 1600s, Joan Flower lived in Bottesford with her 2 daughters, Philippa and Margaret. The daughters worked as servants at Belvoir Castle for the Earl of Rutland. They were dismissed for stealing. Trial records say the Flower women swore revenge. They were accused of murdering the Earl's 2 sons through witchcraft. Joan Flower died during questioning. Said to have choked on bread, she demanded to prove her innocence. Her daughters confessed under interrogation and were hanged. The methods used to extract those confessions were not recorded. We can imagine. Whether the children died by witchcraft or by illness, whether the Flower women were murderers or scapegoats, we cannot know. What we can know is that someone carved an accusation into stone. That stone has stood in this church for nearly 400 years. When you walk through St Mary the Virgin today, you walk past the graves of children whose deaths were blamed on impossible crimes. You walk past the official record of injustice carved in marble. The church still holds regular services. The congregation still gathers each Sunday. The tomb still accuses the dead. Some of these churches are wrong in ways that attract ghost hunters and thrill seekers. Unexplained photographs, phantom coaches, mysterious lights in empty windows. Others are troubling in ways that should make us angry. Graves desecrated for ritual purposes. Prisoners left to die in open-air camps. Women executed for impossible crimes by neighbors who feared what they could not understand. These places were built to provide sanctuary. Instead, something else has taken residence. Whether that something is the manifestation of historical trauma, unexplained phenomena, or collective memory made visible, these churches stand as evidence that the past does not always remain buried. These stories matter. The places are real. The history is documented. And the warnings, whether whispered in vestries or written in parish records, are worth heeding. Britain has 16,000 medieval churches still standing. Some estimates suggest nearly half of them have associated hauntings or unexplained phenomena in local folklore. We have only scratched the surface today. The island holds more darkness than any single video could contain. The land remembers what we prefer to forget. The churches stand as monuments to that memory. And somewhere tonight, a vicar is locking up early. A congregation member is declining to attend evensong. A verger is walking quickly past a particular tomb without looking too closely. They know something we are only beginning to understand. Please watch the video appearing on your screen next, and do not forget to subscribe to Cottage Dreams. I will see you there.